September 1st, 1939. 04:45 at I in the gray half-light before dawn. The border goes silent. Then the guns speak AT exactly 4:45. German artillery opens fire across the Polish frontier. Not as a warning, not as a prelude, but as a signal, precise, timed, deliberate. Within minutes, bombs fall on rail junctions. Telephone exchanges go dead. Airfields erupt in flame. Columns of armor surge forward through morning mist. WWII sunrise. The war Europe had feared for 20 years has already begun, and it is nothing like the last one. The observers expect trenches. They expect weeks of mobilization. They expect declarations, conferences, delays. Instead, they watch entire front lines dissolve in hours. This is the first shock. Polish commanders try to make sense of reports flooding in from every direction at once. Units are under attack in places that should be quiet. Supply depots are burning far behind the lines. Headquarters cannot reach their divisions. Divisions cannot reach their regiments. The map no longer matches reality. WWII midday. German armor columns are already kilometers past the border, moving so fast that infantry units behind them struggle to keep up till the west. In Paris and London, generals study the situation with disbelief. According to every rule of war they know, this should not be possible. Armies are not supposed to move like this. Fronts are not supposed to collapse without being fully engaged, but they are collapsing. Within days, the pattern becomes unmistakable. German tanks do not pause to destroy every enemy unit. They bypass them. They punch through weak points, drive deep, and leave confusion in their wake. Aircraft scream overhead, not just bombing troops, but bridges, roads, command posts, anything that allows coordination. The goal is not destruction. The goal is paralysis. By the end of the first week, Poland's defensive plan is already obsolete. Entire formations are surrounded. Without realizing they're surrounded, orders arrive too late, or not at all. Retreat routes vanish under bombs and fire. Foreign military attaches send urgent cables home. One writes that this is not a campaign. It is an ambush stretched across a country. And this is only beginning. 8 months later, May 10th, 1940. 05:35 am, the same pattern repeats, this time in the west. German forces surge into the Low Countries. Again, there is no pause. Again, speed replaces caution. Allied commanders assume the main attack is obvious, predictable, manageable. They are wrong. While attention is fixed in one direction, German armor bursts through the Ardennes, terrain considered impassable to tanks. Within days, the unthinkable happens. Armored spearheads reach the English Channel. One of the most powerful armies in the world is cut in half. Refugees choke the roads. Headquarters relocate again and again. Orders contradict each other. Units retreat without knowing why. France does not fall because its soldiers refuse to fight. It falls because the war moves faster than its command system can think. Across Europe, governments panic. Neutral nations scramble to rearm. Military academies tear up lesson plans written after the First World War. Something fundamental has changed, and no one is sure how to stop it. Journalists searching for a name begin using a new word. Blitzkrieg. Lightning war to appeal the public. It looks like genius. To politicians, it looks unstoppable. To Germany's enemies, it looks like the future of warfare arriving overnight. But beneath the speed, beneath the smoke and spectacle, something far more dangerous is taking shape. A way of war that depends on constant motion, on perfect coordination, on victories coming faster than problems can appear in these opening months. It seems flawless, and that is what makes it so deadly, because a strategy built on shock leaves no room for failure, and no margin for time. To 1939 and 1940, Blitzkrieg shocks the world. What no one realizes yet is that the same speed that brings these victories will one day drag Germany into a war it cannot control and cannot escape. Berlin, mid-1930s. No fixed date. No formal doctrine. What the world would later call Blitzkrieg does not begin as a master plan. There is no single manual. No official field regulation stamped and approved. Inside Germany, the idea emerges quietly, almost accidentally, born from fear, not confidence. Germany remembers the last war too well. From 1914 to 1918, armies bled themselves white in trenches that barely moved. Millions died for meters of ground. When the war ended, Germany was defeated not by invasion, but by exhaustion, blockade, and collapse at home. The lesson German officers take from this is simple and terrifying. Germany cannot survive another long war. IT lacks raw materials. It lacks oil. It lacks food security. Time is the enemy so German planners stop asking how to win battles. They start asking how to end wars quickly. Inside the army, later known as the Wehrmacht, a new way of thinking takes hold. Instead of grinding forward evenly across the front, why not concentrate force at one point? Why not break through, drive deep, and attack the enemy's ability to function? This is not about bravery or superior weapons. IT is about decision-making speed. German officers study the problem obsessively. They analyze why offensives stall, why victories fade, why armies lose cohesion before they lose men. Again and again, they reach the same conclusion. Modern armies collapse when communication breaks down. As the goal becomes clear, don't destroy the enemy army. Destroy its ability to command on paper. The concept looks elegant. Tanks massed together, not spread thin. Aircraft working directly with ground forces, not operating independently. Radios at every level, allowing rapid changes in direction without waiting for written orders. But there's a critical tension buried inside this idea. The theory assumes perfection, perfect coordination, perfect timing, perfect fuel supply, perfect discipline under extreme speed. That IT assumes that units will always know where they are, that commanders will always know what their subordinates are doing, that success will come faster than confusion. This is where doctrine collides with reality. Unlike other armies, Germany encourages initiative. Officers are told what to achieve, not how to achieve it. If an opportunity appears, they are expected to exploit it immediately, without waiting for permission. This flexibility becomes one of Blitzkrieg's greatest strengths. That IT also becomes one of its greatest dangers, because when everything is moving fast, mistakes move fast to a tank column that advances too far risks isolation. An air unit delayed by weather can unravel an entire plan. A supply convoy that takes a wrong turn can stall an advance measured in hours, not days. And yet, in the 1930s, these risks seem acceptable, because the alternative, slow, methodical war is unacceptable. Other armies do not think this way. France prepares to absorb an attack, then respond deliberately. Britain focuses on blockade and attrition. Most generals expect the next war to be long, controlled, and managed. Germany prepares for something else entirely: the violent opening. Relentless momentum. No pause to consolidate. The gamble is enormous. The enemy collapses quickly. Germany wins decisively. If the enemy holds, adapts, or simply survives, the system has no backup plan. Blitzkrieg, at its core, is not a strategy of strength. IT is a strategy of urgency. And in the late 1930s, urgency feels like genius. What German planners do not yet understand is that by building a way of war that cannot slow down, they are also building a way of war that cannot recover once momentum is lost. For now, the theory remains untested. Soon, it will collide with reality at full speed. Frontline early morning. No declaration. No pause. The attack does not arrive as a wave. It arrives as a system. First, the sky. Before many defenders even realize they are under attack, aircraft dive out clouds. Sirens scream. Bombs fall with surgical purpose, not on cities, but on bridges, rail yards, fuel dumps, and headquarters. Telephone lines vanish in seconds. Roads choke with debris. Orders stop moving. This is the opening move of the Luftwaffe. Not strategic bombing, but flying artillery. Its job is not destruction for its own sake. Its job is to disconnect. Then, the ground breaks open. Armored columns surge forward in narrow corridors, deliberately avoiding strong points. They do not stop to fight every enemy unit. They flow around resistance, leaving pockets behind them, alive, armed, and already relevant. This is the moment most armies never train for. Defenders look for a front line. There is none. Instead, tanks appear where they should not be, behind positions, on supply roads, at river crossings marked safe just hours earlier. Units receive orders to hold ground that no longer exists. The key is coordination. Every vehicle carries a radio. Every commander can talk while moving. Decisions are made in minutes, not days. When resistance stiffens, The advance bends, never stopping, always seeking the path of least resistance. Speed is not chaos. Speed is control. Behind the armor, motorized infantry race to secure crossings and road junctions. Engineers throw bridges across rivers before defenders can react. Anti-tank guns are dragged forward to protect the flanks. Everything moves, even under fire. What looks reckless from the outside is actually disciplined improvisation. The enemy, meanwhile, is fighting the wrong war. They expect attacks to come from the front. They expect time to reposition. They expect pauses after breakthroughs. None of these things happens. Headquarters attempts to regain control, but the battlefield is already fragmented. Reports contradict each other. Units request permission to retreat and never receive an answer. Others retreat without asking, colliding with refugees, and supply convoys moving in the opposite direction. The real damage is not physical. It is mental. Commanders stop trusting their maps. Soldiers stop trusting their orders. Rumors move faster than messengers. Panic spreads sideways, not backward. This is a hidden effect of Blitzkrieg. It does not destroy armies all at once. It unravels them. Within days, entire formations are fighting independently, unaware they have already been bypassed. Ammunition runs out. Fuel disappears. Air support never arrives because the airfields are gone. From the German perspective, the battlefield feels alive, constantly shifting, constantly offering new openings. From the defender's perspective, it feels like being attacked from every direction at once. And all of it depends on one thing: momentum. As long as the advance keeps moving, confusion multiplies. As long as speed is maintained, the enemy cannot reorganize. Every hour gained is more valuable than ground taken. But this weapon has a weakness. It consumes resources at an extraordinary rate. Fuel, spare parts, train crews, all are burned to sustain the tempo. A single stalled column can delay everything behind it. A single destroyed bridge can ripple across an entire front. For now, those problems are invisible. Victories arrive too quickly for questions to matter. The weapon works. The system functions. The world watches in disbelief. But beneath the roar of engines and the illusion of control, the weapon is already demanding more than any army can sustain indefinitely. And the faster it moves, the more it depends on never slowing down. May 10th, 1940. 5:35 a.m., Ardennes Forest, France. The sun rises on a landscape that should have been defended, but is not. Roads twist through dense forests, rivers snake across the terrain. And here, against all expectations, German tanks roar forward. The Allies had assumed the Ardennes was impassable to armor. It was a natural barrier, a reasoned expectation that this flank would remain secure. But Blitzkrieg ignores reason. It moves where the enemy does not expect, striking with relentless focus at BY mid-morning. Columns of Panzer divisions are pushing through the forest. Artillery follows on tracks, and behind them, motorized infantry secures towns and bridges. Meanwhile, Luftwaffe bombs airfields and supply depots, leaving the defenders blind and paralyzed. The combination is devastating. Tanks exploit weak points. Aircraft cut off communication. Infantry secures the flanks. Nothing is wasted. Each unit knows its purpose, adapts as needed, and pushes forward without waiting for orders. By the end of the first day, confusion reigns. Units that should have coordinated stand isolated. Retreats collide with counterattacks. Refugees clog the roads. Commanders lose track of what remains under their control. Why it works? Concentration of force. Instead of spreading strength evenly across the front, Germany focuses armor and air power on decisive points, punching holes through lines and bypassing resistance. Coordination through radios. Units can act in real time. Decisions are made in minutes, not days. This adaptability allows the momentum to continue without interruption. Exploitation of psychology. Shock is more important than destruction. Confusion spreads faster than bullets or shells. The enemy cannot recover if they cannot even see where the next blow will fall. Operational surprise. Every maneuver is designed to attack where it is least expected, breaking assumptions and forcing missteps. The result is breathtaking. France's vaunted defenses, built over decades, collapse in weeks, not months. Cities fall before proper resistance is mounted. Armies retreat without orders. Panic spreads. The speed of German victory seems unstoppable to onlookers. It looks like genius. Historians later call it Blitzkrieg at its peak. The system performing flawlessly, every element feeding the other, every attack compounding the chaos. But even at this height, there is a hidden risk. The faster the advance, the thinner the supply line stretch, the deeper the penetration, the more isolated the spearheads become. The success depends entirely on momentum. Stop, hesitate, or miscalculate, and the same system that brings victory could become a trap. For now, that danger is invisible. The world is in awe. Germany is triumphant. Blitzkrieg has achieved what seemed impossible. War at a speed that outpaces thought itself. But every peak has a fall. And soon, the unstoppable momentum that terrifies Europe will encounter its first limits. Winter 1941. November 6th, Eastern Front, Soviet Union. The speed that once terrified Europe now meets resistance it cannot simply bypass. German armored columns, once unstoppable, slow as the landscape transforms. Mud swallows roads. Rivers freeze and crack under the weight of tanks. Supplies, stretched to their limit, cannot reach the front lines in time. Blitzkrieg was designed to exploit confusion, but now it faces an enemy that refuses to collapse. Soviet forces trade ground strategically, absorb attacks, and counterstrike relentlessly. What was meant to be decisive breakthroughs become grueling advances measured in days, not hours. Fuel runs low. Ammunition dwindles. Spare parts are scarce. The very mobility that defined Blitzkrieg now exposes its Achilles heel. Dependence on constant motion. Halt for a moment, and the system falters. Halt for a week, and the front threatens to disintegrate. Even on the tactical level, cracks appear. Panzer divisions outrun infantry support. Motorized engineers can't repair bridges fast enough. Air support is grounded by weather. Communications fail in the chaos, and orders meant to coordinate spearheads become outdated before they arrive. And then there's a human factor. Soldiers who were exhilarated by rapid advances now grow exhausted. Commanders who thrived under initiative now face impossible decisions. Momentum, once a weapon, is now a burden. Every error compounds the next, and small setbacks cascade into operational crises. Across occupied territories, the same phenomenon emerges. Blitzkrieg worked against thin, unprepared defenses, against a determined and adaptive enemy. Its brilliance becomes brittle. Supply lines stretch hundreds of kilometers. Winter amplifies every delay. Partisan attacks strike behind the front, in the west. 2. The failure of sustained Blitzkrieg becomes apparent. France's initial collapse hides a growing strategic vulnerability. German forces cannot maintain long-term occupation and supply without slowing the tempo. The very tactic that crushed the enemy quickly is ill-suited for prolonged campaigns. The irony is stark. The strategy that made Germany appear unstoppable also leaves it exposed to attrition, weather, and countermeasures. Victory relied on speed. Delay becomes danger. Surprise was a weapon. Predictability is now the trap. WWII late 1941. The first cracks are undeniable. Blitzkrieg is no longer a flawless system. Its successes are temporary, and its vulnerabilities grow with every extended campaign. The battlefield that once bent to German will now test it in ways the architects of the strategy never anticipated. The same tool that shocked the world now carries within it the seeds of collapse. Momentum is both sword and cage. Speed is both weapon and liability. And Germany, riding high on early victories, is only beginning to discover the limits of its greatest gamble. December 1941-1945. Eastern and Western fronts. WWII now. The brilliance of Blitzkrieg has faded into a bitter truth. What was once unstoppable momentum has become unsustainable exhaustion. The war that Germany hoped to finish in weeks stretches into years, consuming men, machines, and morale on the Eastern Front. The winter of 1941-42 reveals the ultimate vulnerability. Tanks freeze in mud and snow. Supply lines collapse over hundreds of kilometers. Soldiers shiver in uniforms meant for spring, while food and ammunition dwindle. Soviet counterattacks exploit every gap. The very speed that allowed breakthroughs now prevents consolidation, exposing armored spearheads to isolation and annihilation. In the West. 2. Germany's early victories, so their own seeds of defeat. Occupied territories demand constant resources to control. Logistics strain under the weight of extended supply lines. Every new front, every stretched operation, multiplies the complexity of a system designed for short, sharp shocks, not prolonged war. BY 1943. The illusion is gone. Blitzkrieg can no longer deliver decisive victories. Its doctrine, built on speed, surprise, and initiative, cannot adapt to attrition, entrenched offenses, or mobilize global opposition. The very tool that terrified Europe has become a weapon with no edge, a machine consuming itself. The collapse is gradual but inevitable. Every tank lost, every supply convoy ambushed, every stalled advance chips away at Germany's capacity to wage war. Commanders argue over priorities that no longer exist. Soldiers fight not with the exhilaration of lightning war, but with the fatigue of endless struggle. Air support is no longer dominance. It is sporadic, defensive, exhausted. BY 1945. Germany is surrounded on all sides. The same speed and coordination that once shocked the world are meaningless against a coalition of nations adapting, overwhelming, and enduring. Cities are bombed into ruin, armies encircle, and supply lines vanish under relentless pressure. Blitzkrieg, the strategy of rapid domination, has consumed its own advantage. The lesson is clear. Blitzkrieg worked because it relied on speed, coordination, and psychological shock. It succeeded brilliantly against unprepared opponents, but it was never designed for a prolonged war of attrition. The system that brought lightning victories was brittle. The faster it moved, the more vulnerable it became once momentum slowed. By the time the war ends, Germany is destroyed, not by slow attrition, not by single decisive battles, but by the very limits of strategy that sought to win too fast. The brilliance of Blitzkrieg is inseparable from its downfall. It shocked the world, terrified armies, and reshaped modern warfare. But ultimately, it destroyed Germany itself. The paradox of Blitzkrieg, a weapon designed for decisive victory, becomes a trap when the world adapts. Momentum becomes fragility. Speed becomes vulnerability. And genius becomes tragedy. The world remembers the victories. Historians remember the myth. But the lesson is timeless. A strategy that cannot pause, cannot sustain itself indefinitely, and what moves too fast ultimately may outrun its own success.